Hey everyone, welcome to Elite AI Assisted Coding. Great to have you here. To finish the week, we have with us today Peter Steinberger. I don't know if you're following Peter on X. If you are, then you know why I'm so excited to have him here. And if you're not, then you really should, because he's one of the most sort of vocal, relentless, unapologetic around working with AI, and he's walking the walk, not just talking the talk, as he will show us today. So it's going to be pretty free. Peter is going to walk us through how he works. If you have any questions or things to share, just jump in or put it in the chat and take it from there. All right, Peter, over to you.
All right, Elena, thank you for the introduction. And hi, everyone. So today we're just going to do a little bit of a freestyle coding. We're adding a new feature. We have, I guess, 45 minutes. So let's see how far we go. And wait, I think one thing I'm missing here is the chat. But I'm happy to be interrupted by any questions you have. I think that's the best thing we can do. We just try to figure out. Oh yeah, here's the chat. Yes. So it's been a while since I did Zoom, since I'm no longer run a company. But I have it on a window now. But feel free to also just. And then there can people actually talk in? Does that work?
Sorry?
Can people just talk here, or is it easy?
Yeah, you can just mute yourself and turn on the camera whenever you want and interject.
Okay, perfect. All right. I'm just walking through a little bit how I approach coding right now. I'm actually in the middle of stuff, so I hope it didn't break too much for a new feature to work. We're just doing some live database migration here, which is always a good idea with models. So a little bit on the basics. I used to love Cloud Code. I still love it, but since I guess this week, I almost fully moved to Codex. Like the whole move was motivated because there is now a little bit harder limits on Cloud, and that led me to like explore other things. And turns out I like Codex a lot more. It's not as good as an app in overall. Cloud has a lot of bells and whistles, but it is much more eager to actually read your code base, where Claude often just like tries random stuff. So you really have to be very diligent with Claude and like plan it first and tell it to like, please look here and please read this. Whereas GPT is much more eager to like read all the files and then usually just does the right thing. So if you still run Cloud Code, I really suggest you to try out Codex. Also, the limits are, I would say, much more generous. I did manage to burn through one account. It's this account number 2. I hope it doesn't fail me today. But if so, we just move to Cloud Code. It's still a very good agent. Sometimes I still use it. There is some parts where Cloud Code is better, especially around Googling. My totally not secret project that I'm working on for the last months is a Twitter analytics website. So like I follow a lot of people. My timeline is probably like 1,000 tweets a day. And reading that is sometimes quite exhausting. So I wanted to have AI summarize it for me. And I've been carrying this idea around since 2021. And nobody built it, so I just built it myself. So this is not finished yet. I guess you can sign up and break things. And I guess I also wired up the payment already, but it's not officially out yet. So please sign up and click around because it probably will break production. I haven't really optimized it for many people, and there are probably also some limits unless you actually pay. But the fun is to build a new feature, right? So I've been thinking about, there's feature requests already? No, I don't take any feature requests. Oh yeah, rumors are Cloud Code Limited in part of Peter's earnings for accounts. Yes, I heard that rumor too. I didn't script it. I paid them quite a bunch, so I guess the topic will good. So I was thinking, like, one of the features that this one does is you can click on a user. I don't know who this is. And then you see like when they tweet, and you can also analyze their profile. So like you fetch a bunch of tweets, and then we do a summary of what's the person actually talking about. You see, it's now loading stuff. And then I can generate analysis. This is just a precursor so you understand what feature you're building. I'm not trying to spell anything here. This doesn't completely explode. You see my setup, I use Ghosty. I think it's the best terminal. If you use any other terminal, switch to Ghosty. Here is my desktop. I run everything on Vercel. Here's my little manual terminal. So I see if there's any what cells change, and then I just have a lot of agents running in split screen. And you probably don't see that over here is another screen with more terminals because you never have enough agents running side by side. I mostly work on main, which I guess conventional knowledge means is terrible. I tried the whole work-free approach, but honestly, it just slowed me down. I had to deal with merge conflicts. So you should just work on 1, 2, 3 features at the same time in the main repository. If you're clever about it, if you work on different things, agents interference will be minimal, and you can still do nice separated commits, and it's just much faster. Your mileage may vary. You see that like it's already analyzing. It's supposed to stream text in there, but it's currently broken because I worked late. I guess there's a time at night after 2, 3 a.m. where I flip from agentic engineering to vibe coding, and that's usually where the shit happens. But I'll fix it up. So the feature we're working today is, wouldn't it be cool if we could compare true users and see if they're compatible? Let's say you create a startup and you want to figure out if your co-founder works like you, like from a character trait. So how about we just fetch a bunch of tweets from person A and a bunch of tweets from person B, and then let the AI figure out what it can do. So I'm gonna start a new session here. It's obviously important to start fresh, keep your context clean when you do a new feature. I mostly work with high, even though medium's probably quite as good. It's more like a psychological thing. You want like have the model do the best thing. So let's just dive right in, and then while it works, I'll explain more stuff. No, I don't do TDD. Fuck that. I write tests afterwards. It's the best way to like get the model to correct itself. So I use VistaFlow, so I'm not going to talk to you now. I'm just going to talk to my agents. All right, we're going to build a new feature. We call it Arena. And what I want to do here is I want to have the user picker, and I want to be able to pick up to 4 users. And then I want to have a button where we press, and then we will fetch tweets from each user, stored it in the drop table. And then once all those one doesn't make sense for 1, so the button should be only enabled if we have 2, 3, or up to 4 users. Then we support up to 1,000 tweets. So if it's 2 users, we're gonna load 500 tweets in each, and if it's 3 or 4 users, loading less. So we're not overloading the model with more than 1,000 tweets. Look into the user analysis, how we do the pre-processing, so that we don't give the model stuff that it's not need. In our case, actually not even need ID. It'll probably just need the text. And then once everything is done, present me the result. So the prompt that we're going to have is the model should look at how does each person work? Like, what's their character? What's their approach to problem solving? What are their main interests? And then ask the model to like evaluate their, let's call it, compatibility score, and then render a table where we want to see for each combination what the compatibility score is, and then calculate one compatibility score for the whole team. And I guess we need a cache for that, so we need a new table. Let's call the feature we call arena. So let's call it just arena cache. And in that table, we store obviously the result and people that we track, and some metadata like how many tweets were fetched each. All right, that's my prompt, and now we see it working. I'm working with Handicap because my screen is much smaller than I'm used to. But we can see if I broke something or if the analysis worked. Oh, it actually worked. So, Eleanor, you can read your personality analysis right here. Energetic, pragmatic, and a little sharp. Someone who loves shipping and tinkering but doesn't suffer hype gladly. Their enthusiasm for quick outcome-first development vibe coding is explicit. The builder mentality and delight in practical wins is on display when they describe rapid prototypes or when they build. So that sounds pretty cool. Yeah, you see there's still some stuff broken. All right, maybe some basics. Yeah. So for this project, I don't use any NTPs. If you follow me on Twitter, you kind of know my sentiment towards that. I think keeping your context as clean as possible is important. So if you add MTPs, you should just clutter up the context. I was using Playwright for a while, but then GTP just randomly opened the browser and tried to verify something with Playwright, which doesn't really make sense in most cases because I'm much faster and I want the model to actually read the code. So I disabled that. There is right now one MCP. I'm not actually lying. Yeah, there's one MCP that I use because Cloud Code has an amazing search feature. I think they use the Brave API, and the one in Codex is either non-existent. I think they added one, but it's not good. So I use file crawl to patch in search basically until they do that well. So I guess in a few weeks I don't need it anymore. No, local models, you cannot do shit with local models, not like that. The context is far too small. I wouldn't suggest to like, I'm answering the chat stuff. I wouldn't suggest to waste your time on local models right now, unless you have a supercomputer at home. And even that, like I have an M3 Ultra at home that actually would kind of work. It runs CLM45 Air in 6-bit, which is still a compromise. It's still not as good as the remote models. So just don't bother with the remote models. If you want to have a cheap alternative to Cloud Code, if you run out, I would suggest this deal. SetAI has an API compatible API that you can plug into Cloud Code, and then you have like almost unlimited Cloud Code for $15 a month with a model that's really good, almost like Sonnet. I always checking features working, not working manually. Well, usually my workflow is I'm clicking around and test the feature, and then also ask the agent to write tests. I have tests. I did do the whole thing with like automation, and I guess at one point, once my product is more stable, I'll move to a pull request based approach. But right now, because I'm still experimenting so much and building shit, this is the most efficient workflow I found. Like, if you create a pull request to everything, there's so much switching cost. It doesn't feel worth it. Um, let's see what else do I have on my note list, because this is gonna, you see now the beauty of Codex is it reads a lot of code. So it still didn't write anything. I'm pretty sure Claude will already went off the rails and would have built something. I also went a little bit risky because I didn't ask it for plan mode. In Codex, there is no switchable plan mode, but the model is much more obedient than Claude. So you can just say plan only, and it will plan only. If you do it with Claude, there's like I would say a 30% chance that it will plan and immediately start working. So it actually needs plan mode. Here, you can just ask it for a plan mode, and you can iterate on it and then say, okay, now build, and then it'll build. Sometimes if I made really big features, I would say this would actually qualify. I ask it to write the plan in a markdown, and because then if the context run out, it's easier to continue. The other nice thing with Codex is you just have a bigger context. So here I have around 230K before the model craps out. And with Claude, you have 156K, unless you got lucky and got the 1 million sonnet. But the problem is it's not really 1 million. The model gets drunk and stupid far earlier. So it's not like you could really, that number is more marketing number. And this here is, works for even complex features in most cases. So I still have 76% left. It probably will be close, but it should be fine.
Really good question from Barrett. Can you dwell a little bit longer on sort of the topic of MCP servers versus just giving instructions and context for using CLI programs?
In general, what you do here is context priming, right? So you wanna give the model the right context for the right task. There's almost never a world where you always want all the MCPs that are out there in your context, but that's not easy to do. I would have to like quit my agent, mess around with the MCP configuration, and restart the agent. This is very slow. This is very annoying. What's the point? And then which MCPs do you actually need? I think the only one that qualifies is Playwright sometimes for testing. So sometimes I do add that. Anything else is, in my opinion, not worth it. Some people like context 7. I just write in a markdown file with documentation. And honestly, mostly I just don't even do that. I just paste in a URL, the model downloads the documentation on the slide. I have a few links in my Claude MD file, so I can just tell it, hey, get the documentation for this, and it will know the link, and it'll just download the documentation on the slide. To me, this is much more efficient. I also, for this project, I built a few CLIs. So I think, let me show. Like one of them is, for example, if you build a web app, you want the model to be able to access the web. Get latest errors with BS log. So I tested a whole bunch. Yeah. Jerome said context 7 is not comprehensive. I also don't trust them because I used them for SwiftUI, and what they had was like a 2019 version of the SwiftUI docs. If you load it in, it actually will make your code worse and not better. So I prefer to actually seeing what I load in, or knowing that the model downloads stuff from the website of the thing that I use, because then it's up to date. So for this project, I built my own CLI because I use BetterStack. Where do we have it? Like for logging. And they didn't have an MCP server or a CLI to get logs from the server at all. So I just wiped my own CLI. It took like 2 hours in the background. And now I have a CLI, I call it BS log. I didn't even look once at the code because it's on my category. Don't give a fuck. It works. no clue how it runs underneath. I mean, I can kind of assume I pick TypeScript for it. Oh yeah, I broke something there. But I can use that if I need logs, and then I build another one, another CLI. And I call it XL, which is just a wrapper for curl with some niceties like the token management. So I can query stuff, some Twitter. I actually used that earlier today because I was thinking about which feature would be cool to use. And I asked it to pull some tweets and figure out if the idea of like this arena feature that I'm having is a good idea. So the model just used the CLI. The beauty is all you need is like one line in your Cloud file or two that explain that the CLI exists, and then the model will eventually try some random shit. It will fail. It will print the help message that pulls in all the instructions how this thing has to be used, and then the model knows how to use the CLI. So you trade one loop, which is like 15 seconds, for a cleaner context. But yeah, you can totally see my Cloud
Yeah.
MD file. It is messy. And it's too large. But I treat this kind of like as a working document, and I add stuff on demand depending on where's my focus right now. So one thing I have here is like,
Quick question, Peter. The CloudMD or AgentMD or whatever, do you let the agent write into it and update it, or this is stuff you just edit manually?
I let the agent writes it.
Oh.
I mean, sometimes I tweak it or I delete it, but usually I write, hey, like whenever we did something that I wanted to remember, I say, hey, make a concise note. But I think the word concise is important. Otherwise, they're going to write a paragraph. And again, you want to be token efficient, especially because the Cloud file gets messy eventually. And then from time to time, I just purge things as my focus in the project shifts. But let me go a little bit over the Cloud file, and then I'll answer the question again. So, okay, like I did a whole bunch of refactoring. So right now it contains a lot of do this, not that, a lot of style guides. Obviously, it contains like which package manager to use, how to switch environments, a quick primer, how the database stuff works. This is from a current refactor where I want to make sure that all the work is complete. How testing works. I use this is one thing I only recently discovered. It's important to like keep the agent in check. So right now, if you see like it is building, and then it will run into a lot of linter errors because I have set up a very large number of biome rules, and then also a very large number of rules with abstract that will morph the chaos it produces into a code style that I like. abstract is really nice because you can write custom rules. So I have some quite unique rules for like database access only in this folder, or like rules around camel case and snake case that are verified. And the beauty is the model knows how that works. So I don't need to have custom instructions. Well, I do a little bit, but even if you remove that, it will be enough to make it work. Yeah, there's more refactoring stuff. I think somebody complained that code has no slash commands. You can just write any command, just say do this, and if it's in your Cloud file, it'll work. Oh yeah, and I have one Cloud file, and the other files, like the cursor file, which I don't really use anymore, are just symlinks. So you just use symlinks for the rest. This is really important if you are crazy as me and use the main thread-driven development. I still want to have clean Git commits. So I tell the model to never just add all the files, only add exactly the files that you touched. And then you get still nicely separated comments, even though there might be way more edited files than the one from just the one model, because sometimes I do like 4 to 6 in the same window. Yeah, we have stuff for environment variables, set validation, some text tag explanation. This is the whole instruction how to use my custom CLI. This is more about refactoring that I should be able to delete that because that's done. I have another CLI for linear, so sometimes I find a bug and I don't want to work on it right now, so I just tell it, hey, make a note in linear, and then we'll just use the CLI and do that. So you don't actually need an MCP for linear, it'll just use the CLI. This is for the XL API, this is actually the most text that I have is for the schema management, because like it's not fun if model messes up the database. So actually, this is by far the largest block I have. I'll eventually move that into a separate file, so I only have to load it on demand. But right now, because I'm constantly changing and iterating on the database, it's convenient to be in there. See this as a living document, add stuff, or just tell the model to add stuff. And then at some point, you can also tell the model to like find redundancies and remove stuff. So it's really convenient. All right. Let's see how far we're going until you're already type checking. Good. All right, let's take the next question. What's the parallel use? Why do I have multiple accounts? No, I need multiple accounts because I just burn through the accounts because I work a lot. And at some point, my account is over. Like the account number 1 is being available again on September 8th. So that's why I use account number 2 for OpenAI. Because I kind of don't want to pay API prices.
Is it really better? So, like, is it still worth it to keep like a few of the bald accounts as opposed to just putting an API key?
Honestly, I didn't do the math yet with GPT. I think it's much closer. With Claude, I was burning through 20, 30K a month with $600 to $800 of subscription investment. So it's definitely cheaper. Well, your mileage may vary. Since they changed the thing mostly to like a weekly number, it's very easy to switch. It takes 5 minutes. So right now it works really well. But we'll see how my workflow evolves, right? Sometimes if I do like some lighter work, I would just spin up my safe Claude that uses set AI. You see that it uses a different API base. And that's basically cheap cloud code for $15 a month. I can help the other agent a little bit.
On the of the sort of open, cheap, alternative Chinese models, which ones do you go to when?
No, I tried a lot. The first one that actually seems to work is GLM 4.5 on set AI. With any of the other ones, I constantly run into issues, whether like connection errors or the open code has potential, but just wasn't stable. Like I never managed to actually sustain a loop. Whereas this one was working for 2 hours the other time, just like fixing random shit by itself. That's the first time I managed to do it with a Chinese model. So right now, this is a good contender. And Grok fast coder, which is also really cool, but there's no good CLI for that yet. So this stuff is changing faster. There's a question if I have a work tree workflow. Yes, I tried that and I have a workflow, but it made me slower. I ran into issues. I already worked on one thing and improved one thing, and then I was working in another tree, another thing, and then I missed the one thing. How do I get the one thing over to the other tree? I feel this is so much more complexity that's just not worth it. Then I had issues where Claude would get lost and like run off into another tree. I guess that only happens if your tree is within the project folder. If you have it as a outside the folder, that probably doesn't happen. But yeah, I'm not a big fan, or at least right now in this stage. Uh, I don't use work trees. I don't create spec for each feature. Somebody said that. I do it for some. It always depends. If there's a small thing, doesn't seem necessary. All right, let's see how far we actually came here, because we're still building a feature. Let's see what it actually built. Here's the first full slice of the array implementation. User pickout, shopping queues, streaming analysis, and result caching. Okay, it built the data migrations, very good. It added the background file. Okay, you need to add this to the top menu bar. I want a new button that says Arena. Put it between tweet and chat. What are the other steps? Okay, I want this. This is also one thing that you will love if you try Codex is it always suggests next steps, and they're almost always a good idea. So sometimes I find myself just typing yes, 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 as it comes up with things that some I did think about, some I didn't even think about. So we want that. I'll copy that for the next thing. The difference is also like in Cloud Code, you steer. So the next time it does a tool iteration, it will also parse the message, which can be quite nice. But you cannot really queue, and Codex doesn't allow you to steer, but you can queue. If you want to steer Codex, you just actually have to press escape and then type it and then press continue. So that's a little difference. How many parallel agents do I run on average? It really depends on what things I work. Usually I work on like a bigger thing, and as I click around, I find small issues that I want to be fixed, and I just spin up a new window for smaller issues. So do you figure out if you should just buy the feature when you're looking over the... How do you figure out if you just vibe code a feature? I don't really know what the difference is. I mean, I build features. The joke was agentic engineering is when you actually take a lot of attention. And right now I was like talking to you, so I guess this would qualify as vibe coding because I didn't really watch the changes. I will totally verify that later. My Git tool of choice is Sublime Merge. So you can see that it did the database. This is from before committing. This is about Lint stuff. If we thought will work, yeah, we have the arena feature now. This is Linter stuff. This is wired up. New API endpoints. Let's see. Here we have the new analyzer out. A real-time hook. This is the prompt that it came up with. I'm curious if that will work. The analyzer, storage, clean publish. It seems to be on track. Let's see if actually something happens because it didn't wire up the link yet. But oh yeah, here we go, arena. So let's pick me. Yeah, we need to check what actually happening underneath. Maybe I need to do an add. It doesn't seem to work yet. So in that case, keep this off. Give me a session there. We change the model to high. hey, we just built a arena feature and there is a user picker in there, but I don't see the autocomplete working. Give it the URL just to be sure, and then just like run out. So you see, like sometimes while this one is like tweaking stuff, this one's also just interfering and like helping out. And that approach usually works out pretty well because that one is focused on different things. I could, of course, wait for that one, but that one will eventually also run out of context. We just parallels. Chaos in my chaos. Often you read through the output of the codex session. Depends. It depends on how tricky it is. I know this one is right now a lot of scaffolding, so it's not as important. And then later on, when we debug it or figure it out, I have to read it. LaserGit is great. Yeah, I tried the whole terminal thing. Turns out, I don't know, having an operating system and actual UI, nice fonts and read. I prefer that, but LaserGit is a good choice if you fully want to listen to terminal. So Romy, you say you would have the whole stack intro again. I actually think this is not a good idea because the model, as it comes up with the whole stuff, already loads the context beautifully with everything it needs to build. So if you use the model to create a stack and then use another context to like build the stack, it has to load all the files again. It will really like almost double the time it needs to build the feature. So that's the one thing that's always the problem with agentic work. I have like 2 agents right now, but I'm bored already because they're both busy. I would now click around and probably like look at a different feature, or if it's something really interests me, would read the code. Often parallel agents edit the same file. This doesn't really happen. They detect if a file is changed. They'll read it before. If the file is changed, it'll usually cause an error. They'll read it again. Even if multiple agents work on the same feature, it's very rare that you actually run into conflicts. I get conflicts if I use different work trees, but just like having multiple agents on the same repo, for me, works is a beautiful way to get stuff done really, really fast. All right, let's see what we can say while this is all loading and working. Tests. All right, it's straightforward to have a nice closed loop for agents to write some automated tests against their code. Browser agent loop. I used this in the past a bit more. Like Playwright is nice, and then they can click around. But I just found it to be so slow. Like I care about getting stuff done. I'm much faster if I test it and then just pass stuff back into the model. You can automate that with Playwright and you can test it to like verify everything, but it's just way slower. And also Playwright really clogs up your context. So I much rather use the context that I have left here to make it write some good tests. Because once your context is over, it's going to be much harder to make the model write good tests. So it's all about trade-offs. All right, so let's see what it's actually doing here. Oh, maybe it was looking for IDs. Here we go. So it already fixed stuff. So I can select me and Eleanor, and then I click analyze, and let's see what happens. And we get a crash, which is fine though. Unauthorized. Why am I unauthorized? And why is there no header? See, there's some stuff missing. Hey, you built this whole feature, but you didn't really use my layout for the other pages. You should use the same layout that we use in Insight, for example. And obviously this feature only works when I'm signed in. So fix this. So I don't know why it came up with this clean room approach. In most cases, when I build a new feature, it would take up my layout. But that's what you get with agent's temperature. Sometimes it does stuff that will be easy to fix. So I'm not sure why it would say unauthorized, but probably it's not in the right direction. Let's see if we just need to log in again. Oh yeah, see now it's here. And we're streaming. So what you're now not seeing is the whole thing is starting a background operation. Ah, yeah, this likely will not work because we are in production. So I need to switch to the dev environment and restart Mastodon. Yeah, the worst thing is this flow. I think the crucial thing that not a lot of other apps do is it also corrects my intent. So let's say I say implement feature A. Oh, actually, I meant feature B. It just says implement feature B. I don't know if you see it well here, but it actually, Whisperflow does semantic parsing, corrects what you say into the correct thing you actually want to say, which is really nice and also saves token again, because the whole game is being smart about your context. All right, let's see if we need to log in again because I have to switch to the dev environment. Things are a bit slow right now. Why? Start this again. Or does he any other questions? Nope. Here we go. Let's see if we actually put it to work. Delete. Then mask, no, definitely not. That's the rating for the model. I use ingress for the background workers because this is a long running job. And it failed because we forgot to actually migrate the database. Hey, please migrate the dev database with the new table we just made. Oh. I think I fixed everything I want. Why did I fix it here? Cost. And this is also a good idea. Carry the insights headers to this. I wanted you also keep track of the job and show that the job is running, and also allow me to quickly, show the profile sheet when I hover over it, and when I click over it, I want to go to the user analysis mode. Write tests for it. Commit. Come here, fuck this. Commit. Sometimes the model mocks me when I write something funny because the voice translation doesn't fully work. But the funny thing is the agents are so smart that they usually also understand if it's something that approximately is what you meant. Claude is really good at this, where it uses like apostrophes. I do this, but they still do the right thing. So this workflow is insanely powerful. Having fun as with a branch of the conversation. No, it's not working here. Also, just open a new window and just redo the code. I think there's a lot of over engineering that goes on when people try to work with agents. Just talk to it. I don't think I ever had a use case where I wanted to like split off a context. I guess here it would be useful because then we could like now do some of the jobs, like the test job, and this job could be run at the same time. That's just in the cars that not really work with what you have with the tools. Okay. So we're almost out of time.
Just one question about the context and the flow of the conversation. Do you ever control the compacting? Is that because in Codex you can have to either you do it or it's not happening, whereas Claude will decide at some point to compact?
Oh yeah, you see compacting conversation and you know everything that goes to shit. I would suggest to not let it go there. It really depends on the workflow. If I have a workflow that says fix my test because I did a big migration and then fixing up the test will take a lot of loops, then do it in Cloud Code. Cloud Code is really good at auto compacting and just continuing. And it's also really good at still steering the model to what you wanted, even though it's compacted. But if you build a new feature, I would plan the complexity of the feature so it fits into the context. So you see, we still have 60% context left. This is totally a lie. Like when it's down to like 33%, it will fail. So keep that in mind. But we still have enough space to actually finish this feature. Sometimes the same with Claude that there's like string errors, but the models usually auto recover, so this is fine. And you have one terminal write notes. Oh, I don't know how that would work. What kind of notes do you want to have, and when do you pull those notes in? I think the best notes is actually the code. So if something is really complicated, I sometimes instruct the model to like write the intent of what we wanted to do as code comments, and then I just have the notes for this feature right in the code. And when we revisit that and debug it, the model will read the code, and we also read the comments of the code. So comments are not just useful for humans; they're also useful for agents. And it's also easier to like keep them in line, because if you have a lot of stacks, it's a lot of here's this feature, you also have to need care to also make sure that you remember to update the document. Otherwise, the agent has conflicting information, which is also not great. I like code comments actually. It's also quite natural because if you would write code yourself, you also would write code comments. So, and agents usually are notoriously bad at writing code comments by themselves. So you have to nudge them a little bit to say, hey, please comment this. Please add more logging. You actually don't have to say please. Repo prompts. I tried it. I played with it. I never was really successful with it. There's some people who swear by it, but in my test, it just turned out to be it's really complex to set up. If you use the MCP, that one is buggy. So sometimes it just sends over too much data. and then the agent cuts it off by 25k tokens. Then auto compacts, and then it forgets to use the agent, the MCP. I like the idea of repo prompt, but it doesn't work for me. And I tried it a bunch of times because I also really like the guy who makes it. Ultimately, this comes down to having an agent using another agent for work is not the best idea. You really want the model to have the code it writes in the context. Otherwise, you will see drift where it writes some stuff, but it doesn't really know. Well, like someone else writes some stuff and doesn't really know or read everything, and then it writes some other stuff which will not really fit the coherent idea. The beauty of everything in the context is everything in the context, at least for that session, what it's building is kind of coherent. Do you have the feeling that you have to prompt differently with Cloud Code? Yeah. I used to talk much more with Cloud Code. So Cloud Code gives you really good results if you talk a lot. Sometimes I would explain a feature from like 2 different angles. That's not necessary anymore with GPT-5. GPT-5 it works better if you clear your thoughts and be very concrete with what you want. The whole lot of brabbling around is a strategy I use more for Cloud Code. So yeah, my prompting changed a little bit. Also because the default for GPT is that it reads much more code. So even if I'm lazy, but directive, like fix this, it will usually find and crawl through a lot of the code base and find the right things. Whereas Claude usually it sees a few things and just changes things. And then you have to actually do plan mode and tell it to like, look here, to get a similar result. All right. I'm not quite sure where we are right now. It's still changing and updating stuff. It was supposed to update my database. Okay, I instructed it. So let's see one more where we are. So yeah, I don't think we'll manage to finish this feature in the time frame, but I think we got quite far.
This is really cool. Thanks, Peter. And I think if there's one thing I'm taking from this session today is, people would try to scare you and say, no, you have to use sandboxing, you have to use branches, you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. And yeah, there are probably situations like when you're handling, I don't know, the financial data of something used. Yeah, probably you should take more caution. But like the title of this session, you can also just do things. And we've seen the proof.
I think it's actually working. See, the top ran through. And still waiting for the model. Damn it. Probably the real-time connection is not there yet. All right, one more prompt. Hey, when we already have cached entries in the arena, just give me a table where I can select them and read them. Put that underneath the search box. Check my database. So many ones. Arena. Reload arena cache. Oh yeah, see, it's already here. Look. We already have a result. Strong value alignment on EF first step, OSS and simplicity, complementary strengths, potential friction, pace and opinionative style, mitigated by shared pragmatism and prior positive interaction. Score 89. So I don't know, we have a score of 89. I guess we're compatible. I don't know what the maximum is. I guess it's 100. Because you didn't specify that. So that's definitely something that obviously needs more tweaking. But I think the beauty is that with that workflow, you can just explore a feature, because I don't know if that actually makes sense. I'm just gonna try it out. And you get 29, and you're getting incredibly fast results. So yeah, while the real-time stuff obviously is a bit more tricky, I didn't feed the context with the documentation from my background server. So yeah, I forgot it because I talked too much. So Claude is made of anything. Here, it's always good when you pick a service that is modern and has documentation already prepared for the LLM. In that case, this is just, there is a LLM full, but if I would load it in, my context would explode. So you can load in the text. And then, we don't have enough windows. Let's use this. How real-time works in left. And also check out the example and make Arena work like this. Another trick that's also really useful is if you have a bug or a problem, build a small isolated example where you can iterate faster and make it work, and then just tell a model, make it like this. So in my case, I had lots of trouble getting real-time streaming to work, so I built a small example inside my project, just with that feature. And then after iteration, like I finally figured out how it works, and then just told it, here, this is the approach that worked. Now transfer that to the other feature. That works for many things. If you have, when you struggle with a difficult bug, just do the minimal implementation and then use this as reference. So that's what I'm doing here. I already have an example where it works. I've fed some documentation, so now it uses Firecrawl. The beauty with Firecrawl is it gives the model Markdown, a codex. If you don't use Firecrawl, would just happily read the HTML, which is fine because the model can deal with it. But again, it's about context load. You don't want to have all the HTML tags in your context. That's a waste. Do you fetch the tweets with the Twitter API? Yes, I pay 5,000 per month for it. Thank you. So I really do hope I can actually eventually sell that product, because the Twitter API is fucking expensive now. Thanks, Elon. But I wouldn't necessarily say this is like bad, because it also makes the ratio of anyone else trying it much harder, so you have less competition. You know, you always have to find the good thing in the bad things. Yeah, that's the big downside. Like GPT-5, I feel is even slower than Cloud Code, but ultimately it's faster because it doesn't need 50 iteration until it actually works. So while it might appear slower right now, I guarantee you this would require more iterations with Cloud Code. Sure, I stopped there. Yeah, I know. Not everyone is insane.
And you're doing this everything with high reasoning, right? That you mentioned. You're not switching like from plan to execute or something like this.
Honestly, I don't know. I worked a bunch with Medium as well, because also every time you switch new, it switches to Medium unless you call codecs with high as the default. And I have pretty good results with Medium as well, and it's definitely faster. But there's this psychological component where you want the model to be as smart as possible. So I guess that's my very bullshit reason for picking high. Needs more experimentation. This is only a week, so it's kind of hard to tell. But because I work on multiple things, to me the iteration time, how long a single command works, doesn't matter as much, because I just switch to a different thing. Like, and usually I would probably like pick some other remaining work, or like start tweaking another feature with like little ideas I have, and then I revisit that once it's built. That's the beauty of Chaos working on main. You can just switch around. I don't have to restart my dev server. And ultimately, I don't have to wait so long. It's already at the compile. It happily understood that my come here actually needs to commit. And it's committing things now. And we have a cached analysis. So view. It's loading, I guess. It shouldn't load so much. I guess we have an error here. Yes, here we go. So you see I have my dev server here. And I'm just going to copy the error. And we'll feed that without any comment, passive aggressive. Just copy the error into your context. And the model will know that you just copied an error in, and it will assume that you want it to be fixed. So I don't actually have to write anything. I just copy in. How good is GPT-5 to write Swift code? The last 2-3 weeks I've been working on this web project. So I don't know. I heard it's at least as good as Cloud Code. I mean, every model sucks with Swift, to be honest, but it's also not that bad. It just takes more. It takes a few more loops, and don't do too much with async await because the models are really bad. But I would say this is on Apple because they have so much language churn in Swift, which is just not very model friendly. And humans struggle with the async stuff on Swift. So yeah, so it's better. As I said, I don't know. I would almost guess that GPT-5 is better by now because it's the cutoff date is a little bit later. And the problem was that all the SwiftFix stuff is so new that they haven't seen a lot of SwiftFix code yet. This will be much better in a year or half a year when as model have the newer cutoff date. Okay, you see like it already was eating the API error. I mean, what problem do we have? We just have a float error. So there's some, that's really important if you build web stuff, use float as a validator, but obviously somewhere the model got it wrong. That stuff usually also would be found if you just ask the model for tests. But I'm not even there yet. I mean, we're still building features. I still have enough context left to also ask it for tests. And then even if I wouldn't do my automated testing because I'm distracted building another feature, I would just as the next step say add tests, and then usually it will find the looming issues it created in that session. So always ask, write tests. I mean, models in general are not very good at writing good tests, but it's usually good enough to find some issues at least of the feature that you're building. So it's not TDD, but it's yeah, it definitely helps. All right, I think maybe we do a few more minutes and then I actually have to run. But I would love to see the report in text, and we are almost there. This is the last step that's missing.
I think this is a good question, actually. So do you, when you work with like Codex or Cloud, do you YOLO everything, or do you sometimes have sessions where you feel the need to do manual approvals?
What's the manual approval though? I mean, right now this is still in development, so I don't need a dev server. Once it's in production, I would push to a dev server and then do manual testing and then eventually like move it to production. So I guess YOLOing would just be pushing to production without testing. I definitely don't do that.
No, I think probably the question, if I'm interpreting, and if I'm, feel free to unmute and ask if I'm misinterpreting, but the question is more with the agent itself. Do you always run with no approvals? Just do it.
Oh
and
yeah.
Because
I mean, 3 months ago, I wrote this article about code is my computer. Nothing bad ever happened. Just be smart about it. Just don't ask the model to delete stuff unless it's a very simple thing or like move stuff around. Like But otherwise, everything is in Git, backups. Backups run every night in case something would go wrong. So I guess the worst case that could go wrong is that it deletes my computer, which never happened so far. But, I don't know anyone who actually accepts every request manually, because it's the Windows Vista syndrome. You will probably be focused and think about, yes, accept, but at some point you'll just click and it's just going to be automatic. And even a find command can delete stuff if it's called the right way. So to actually be like super diligent, you would have to take care and be very attentive, which kind of defeats the point of moving fast. So I think, yes, YOLO is the only way of running agents. Okay. So let's see. It's still, I think it did fix something. Let's see. Yeah. Yes. And we built the feature in 1 hour. So
Very cool.
and we have a score of 89 and a team score of 88, which makes no sense at all. Because it should be the same number. But two-person team combines repeatable execution with discipline, context rules, enabling fast delivery with quality. Risks are tempo mismatch and strong opinions. Well, I guess they're right, but overlapping tools and goals make collaboration high yield. Participants, Peter, work. See, even the hammer is now there. Fast, solo, hands-on build, work, structured, spec first, process-oriented. Well, Ileana, I guess it would be a good match, at least based on my agent.
Yes. Very, very cool.
I
People
think
Recommend.
we succeeded in building the feature. I mean, they're still doing stuff, but follow up this test. And I actually don't know if I want to ship this feature, but actually I might do. It's pretty cool.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And yeah, I'm pretty sure you're all following Peter on X, but if you're not, go now and follow him, because that much advice and wisdom and adventure, like every day, the whole day long. And yeah, see you around. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. If you have more questions, just reply to me on Twitter. Happy to share my stuff. Have a good one. Bye bye.